Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Picture this. You leave everything you know, your home, your family, your whole world behind. That's what a group of Korean nurses did in the 1950s, stepping into the unknown of U.S. military camps. They arrived with nothing but their skills and a ton of courage. And then, something incredible happened. They saw electric lights for the first time. Their gasps filled the air, their eyes sparkling with wonder. This wasn't just about light, it was about trust, community, and building a new life. So what kept these women here so far from home? Let's dive into their story. A story that's going to make you feel inspired, connected, and maybe even a little teary. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get started. This story takes us back to the Korean War, from 1950 to 1953. Korea was a tough place then. The country was split, north versus south, and war tore through villages, leaving homes in ruins and families separated. In small towns, nurses worked in makeshift hospitals, often by candlelight. Imagine that, stitching wounds or checking fevers with just a tiny flame to guide you. These women were heroes, but life was hard. They faced hunger, fear, and the constant threat of bombs. Yet, they kept going, driven by a deep sense of duty to help others. Let's set the scene a bit more. The Korean War wasn't just a conflict, it was a catastrophe that reshaped lives. Villages that once buzzed with markets and laughter were reduced to rubble. Families huddled in makeshift shelters, sharing what little food they had. Nurses like those we're talking about worked in tents or crumbling buildings, their only light coming from candles or oil lamps that flickered with every gust of wind. They carried the weight of saving lives while worrying about their own families, often not knowing if their loved ones were safe. Yet, their commitment never wavered. They bandaged wounds, delivered babies, and held the hands of the dying, all by the dim glow of a flame. This resilience, this unshakable duty to care, is what makes their story so powerful. It's about people who, even in the darkest times, chose to be a light for others. Let's imagine a young nurse named Soo-jin. She's 23, with steady hands and a warm smile, even when she's scared. In her village, she works late into the night, comforting soldiers and civilians alike. Her family relies on her, but the war has taken so much. Her older brother hasn't been heard from in months. One day, a rumor spreads. The U.S. military needs nurses for their camps, maybe in Japan, Hawaii, or even America. It's a chance to escape the war, earn money, and keep helping people. But it means leaving Korea maybe forever. Can you imagine that choice? Packing a small bag, hugging your parents, not knowing if you'll see them again? That's what Soo-jin did, along with hundreds of other nurses. They weren't just chasing a job, they were chasing hope. Let's pause for a second to really feel that moment. Soo-jin's village is quiet now, the kind of quiet that comes after air raid sirens stop. Her parents' faces are lined with worry, but they nod, urging her to go. She folds a single photograph of them into her bag, along with a worn scarf her mother knitted. The weight of that choice is heavy, leaving behind the smell of her mother's cooking, the sound of her father's laughter, the familiar paths of her village. But Soo-jin, like so many others, carries a spark of hope. She dreams of a place where she can work without fear, where her skills can make a difference, where her family might one day have a better life because of her courage. This is what makes their story so human. It's not just about survival. It's about believing in something bigger, even when everything around you feels broken. Let's dive deeper into that moment of departure. Picture Soo-jin standing at the edge of her village, the early morning mist curling around her feet. Her mother presses a small bundle of rice cakes into her hands, a final taste of home. Her father, usually so strong, can't meet her eyes, but he squeezes her shoulder and whispers, "Be safe." The village elders gather, offering quiet blessings, their voices heavy with pride and fear. Soo-jin's little sister, barely 10, clings to her, begging her to stay. But Soo-jin knows this is her chance to help, not just her patients, but her family, her village, maybe even her country. She boards a truck to the port, her heart pounding, the photograph in her bag feeling like a lifeline. This choice isn't just about leaving. It's about carrying her loved ones with her, in her heart, as she steps into the unknown. It's a courage rooted in love, a human value that resonates across time. The journey was long. Soo-jin boarded a ship, clutching a photo of her family. The sea stretched out, endless and scary, but she held on to her courage. These women showed a quiet strength, the kind that pushes you forward even when your heart's breaking. They believed in a better future, not just for themselves but for the people they loved. That's what makes their story so human. It's about holding on to hope, even when the world feels dark. Picture Soo-jin on that ship, standing at the railing as the waves crash below. The journey takes days, maybe weeks, crossing the vast Pacific. She's surrounded by other nurses, some whispering prayers, others staring silently at the horizon. They share stories of home. Soo-jin talks about her little sister, who loves to draw, and another nurse, Rin, shares how she used to sing lullabies to her patients to calm them. These small conversations build a bond, a tiny community on a ship sailing toward the unknown. They don't know what awaits them, but they hold onto each other's strength. It's a reminder that hope isn't just something you feel. It's something you share, something that grows when you lean on others. Have you ever had a moment like that, where a stranger's kind word or shared story gave you the courage to keep going? Think about it as we move forward. Let's expand on this journey. The ship is old, its metal creaking with every wave. Soo-jin shares a cramped cabin with Rin and two other nurses, their bags stacked in a corner. At night, they lie awake, listening to the hum of the engine and the distant cries of seabirds. Rin, who's a bit older, becomes a big sister to the group, sharing her small stash of dried seaweed to remind them of home. They talk about their fears. Will they be welcomed? Will they understand the work? But they also share dreams. Soo-jin wants to send money for her sister's schoolbooks. Rin hopes to learn new nursing techniques. These conversations, whispered in the dark, weave a thread of connection. They're not just nurses now. They're a family, bound by shared courage and hope. This sense of community, even in the middle of the ocean, shows us how humans find strength in each other, no matter where they are. When Soo-jin arrived at A.U.'s military camp, let's say in Japan, everything felt strange. The air smelled different, the food was weird, like bread and butter instead of rice and kimchi, and the language was a jumble of sounds she couldn't understand. But the biggest shock came when she walked into the hospital tent. Someone flipped a switch, and the room lit up with electric light. No candles, no smoke, just a clear, bright glow from a glass bulb. Soo-jin's jaw dropped. She'd heard about electricity, but seeing it was like magic. One nurse, in a real account from the time, said, "It felt like the stars came down to help us." That's how big this moment was. Let's linger here, because this moment is the heart of the story. Imagine Soo-jin standing in that tent, her hands still calloused from years of work by candlelight. The electric light doesn't flicker, it doesn't fade. It bathes the room in a steady glow, revealing every detail: the bandages on a table, the tired eyes of a patient, the clean tools ready for use. For Soo-jin, it's not just light, it's a revelation. Back in Korea, she squinted in the dark, always worried about making a mistake. Here, she can see clearly, work confidently, and focus on healing. The other nurses around her gasp, some giggle, others touch the light bulb gently, as if it might disappear. One historical record tells of a nurse who cried, not out of sadness but because the light felt like a promise that life could be different. This moment of wonder connects them all, a shared spark that lights up their hearts. Let's dive deeper into this moment of awe. The hospital tent is canvas, stretched tight over wooden poles, but under the electric light, it feels like a palace. Soo-jin watches as the light catches the metal of a scalpel, making it gleam. She sees the faces of her patients, soldiers, civilians, even children, lit up clearly for the first time. No more shadows hiding their pain or hope. She remembers a night in Korea when her candle went out mid-surgery, forcing her to work by touch, praying she wouldn't harm her patient. Here, the light is steady, reliable, like a friend. The other nurses share her wonder. Rin whispers, "It's like daytime at night." And another nurse, Myung, laughs, saying, "I thought it was a dream." This moment isn't just about technology. It's about possibility. It's about feeling, for the first time in years, that the world might hold something good. Have you ever seen something so new it felt like magic? Maybe a new gadget, a beautiful view, or even a kind smile when you needed it most. That's what these nurses felt, a spark that changed everything. Those lights weren't just about seeing better, they were a symbol Back in Korea, Soo-jin worked in the dark, always afraid of the next attack. Here, the light meant safety, a chance to focus on healing without worrying about running out of oil for a lamp. It meant progress, like the world was moving forward, and she could be part of it. For Soo-jin, that glow was a spark of possibility, a reason to believe things could get better. It's a reminder of a human value we all share: wonder. When something new and amazing comes into our lives, it can change how we see everything. For these nurses, electric lights were more than technology, they were a promise. Let's think about what that promise meant. In Korea, the war had dimmed everything: hope, safety, dreams. The constant threat of bombs meant nurses like Soo-jin worked with one ear listening for danger. They rationed candles, saved every drop of medicine, and prayed their hands wouldn't shake. In the U.S. camps, the electric lights were a sign that things could be different. They could work without fear, see their patients' faces clearly, and maybe even dream of a future where their families weren't hungry. This wasn't just about technology. It was about feeling human again, about believing in a world where kindness and care could thrive. Have you ever had a moment where something small, a kind word, a new opportunity, felt like a light in the dark? That's what these nurses felt, and it changed everything. Let's explore this symbol further. In Korea, darkness wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual. The war had stolen so much: homes, loved ones, certainty. Soo-jin often worked through the night, her only company the soft cries of her patients and the distant boom of artillery. The candlelight was never enough, always fading when she needed it most. In the U.S. camp, the electric light was more than a tool. It was a beacon. It meant a place where she could focus on her patients, not on survival. It meant a world where progress was possible, where she could learn new skills, save more lives, and maybe even build a future for her family. This promise of light, of safety, of hope, gave her the strength to keep going. It's a reminder that sometimes, the smallest things can carry the biggest meanings, like a light bulb showing the way to a new life. But life in the camps wasn't all bright lights and wonder. These women were strangers in a new world. They didn't speak much English, and some of the American soldiers and doctors didn't know what to make of them. Can they handle the work? Some wondered. It was tough. Soo-jin felt out of place, missing her mom's cooking and the sound of her language. But she didn't let that stop her. She worked hard, bandaging wounds, checking temperatures, and staying late to make sure every patient was okay. Her kindness shone through, even when words failed her. Let's dive deeper into Soo-jin's daily life. She wakes up in a shared barack, the air chilly and unfamiliar. Breakfast is strange. Oatmeal instead of rice porridge, no spicy tang of kimchi to wake her senses. She pulls on her nurse's uniform, still stiff and new, and heads to the hospital tent. The work is intense. Soldiers with shrapnel wounds, civilians with fevers, and long hours that leave her feet aching. Language is the hardest part. She tries to understand the doctor's quick English, nodding even when she's confused. Some soldiers look at her curiously, others with doubt. "Who's this girl?" their eyes seem to ask. Soo-jin feels the weight of their stares, but she keeps going. She remembers her mother's words, "Do your best, and your heart will show the way." That's the resilience these nurses carried, a determination to prove themselves, not with words but with action. Let's paint a fuller picture of her routine. The barack is a long, narrow room with rows of cots, each nurse's space marked by a small pile of belongings. Soo-jin's cot has her mother's scarf draped over the edge, a reminder of home. She wakes before dawn, her breath visible in the cold air, and joins the other nurses for breakfast in a mess hall. The oatmeal is lumpy, the coffee bitter, but she eats anyway, knowing she needs strength for the day. At the hospital tent, she works alongside American nurses and doctors, their voices a blur of unfamiliar sounds. She learns to recognize commands by tone, urgent for emergencies, calm for routine checks. Her hands move with precision, wrapping bandages, administering shots, comforting a soldier who cries out in his sleep. Every task is a chance to prove herself, to show that she belongs. This resilience, this quiet determination, is what defined these nurses, a strength born from love and duty. One day, an American soldier, let's call him Tom, was in the hospital with a bad leg injury. Soo-jin cared for him, gently changing his bandages and smiling even when he was grumpy. Tom didn't speak Korean, but he noticed how careful she was, how she hummed softly to calm him. One afternoon, he handed her a piece of candy from his rations and said, "Thank you." Soo-jin didn't understand the words, but she felt the gratitude. She smiled back, and in that moment they connected. It wasn't about language, it was about kindness. That's what started to build trust. Let's expand on this moment, because it's so powerful. Tom's leg is bandaged tightly, and he's in pain, missing his own family back in Ohio. He's young, maybe 19, and scared he'll never walk right again. Soo-jin notices his clenched fists, the way he avoids her eyes. She doesn't know his story, but she knows that fear. So, she moves slowly, her hands gentle as she cleans his wound. She hums a Korean lullaby her mother used to sing, soft and soothing. Tom's shoulders relax, and for the first time he looks at her, not as a stranger, but as someone who cares. When he hands her that candy, it's more than a sweet, it's a bridge. Soo-jin tucks it into her pocket, saving it for later, a small reminder that kindness can cross any divide. This moment isn't just about one soldier and one nurse. It's about how small acts of care can build trust, even in the hardest times. Let's linger on this connection. Tom's candy is a small, wrapped piece of caramel, worn from being carried in his pocket. Soo-jin doesn't eat it right away. She saves it, placing it next to her family's photo at night. It's a treasure, not for its taste but for what it means. A soldier's trust, a human connection. The next day, she brings Tom a cup of water without being asked, and he tries to say, "Annyeong," stumbling over the word. They both laugh, a shared moment that eases the tension of the hospital. Other nurses notice, and soon, small gestures spread. Another soldier shares a comic book. A doctor offers a nod of approval. These moments are tiny, but they build a foundation of trust. They show us that kindness doesn't need words, it needs heart. Have you ever had a moment where a small act of kindness made you feel seen? Maybe a stranger's smile or a shared laugh. That's the magic these nurses created, one gesture at a time. Over time, these small moments added up. The American staff saw how skilled the Korean nurses were. They weren't just good at their jobs, they cared deeply. Soo-jin learned a few English words, like hello and okay, and taught her colleagues some Korean, like annyeong for hello. They laughed together over mispronounced words, shared coffee, and swapped stories. Slowly, the nurses became part of the team. They weren't strangers anymore. They were friends, colleagues, people you could count on. This shows us the power of trust and community. When people come together, even from different worlds, they can find common ground. These nurses built bridges with their hearts, proving that kindness speaks louder than words. Let's paint a picture of this growing community. Picture a break room in the camp, a small tent with a rickety table. Soo-jin and her friend Hyrin sit with two American nurses, Mary and Ellen. They're sipping coffee bitter to Soo-jin, but she's getting used to it. Mary tries to say annyeong, stumbling over the word, and everyone bursts out laughing. Hyrin teaches them gamsahamnida for thank you, and Ellen writes it down, determined to get it right. They share stories. Soo-jin talks about her village's spring festivals, the way cherry blossoms fell like snow. Mary describes her hometown's 4th of July fireworks. These moments aren't big, but they're everything. They turn strangers into friends, building a community where everyone feels seen. It's a lesson for us all. Connection starts with small steps, with listening, with trying to understand someone else's world. Let's expand this scene. The break room is lit by those same electric lights, casting a warm glow over the group. The table is cluttered with empty coffee cups and a plate of biscuits Mary brought from the mess hall. Soo-jin shares a story about her village's annual harvest festival, how the whole community would gather to share rice cakes and sing under the stars. Hyrin chimes in, describing how she'd sneak extra rice to her patients during the war, even when food was scarce. Mary talks about her small town in Iowa, where summer fairs meant cotton candy and fireflies. Ellen, shy at first, opens up about her dream to travel the world. They teach each other words, trading hello for annyeong, friend for chingu. The laughter is loud, the kind that makes your sides ache, and for a moment the war feels far away. This community, built on shared stories and mutual respect, shows us how trust grows, not from grand gestures, but from moments of connection that make you feel at home. As the Korean War ended in 1953, the nurses faced a huge decision: go back to Korea or stay. For Soo-jin, it was heartbreaking. Korea was home, her parents, her childhood, her culture. But it was still a place of struggle, with villages rebuilding and jobs scarce. The U.S. camps offered something different: stability, a chance to grow as a nurse, and those electric lights that still felt like a miracle. Soo-jin wrote letters to her family, promising to send money to help them. She thought about the friends she'd made, the patients she'd helped, and the life she was starting to build. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about thriving. Let's step into Soo-jin's heart for this decision. She sits alone one night, a letter from her mother in her hands. The paper is thin, the ink smudged from her tears. Her mother writes about the village, how they're rebuilding the school, how her father still sets a place at the table for her missing brother. Soo-jin wants to go back, to hug them, to walk the familiar streets. But she also thinks about the hospital here, the patients who smile when she enters, the electric lights that make her work easier. She thinks about the money she's saved, enough to send home for her sister's education. Staying doesn't mean forgetting home. It means building a new one, carrying her family's love with her. It's a choice that tears her apart, but it's also a choice to keep going, to believe in a future where she can help more people. That's resilience, the kind that grows from love and sacrifice. Let's delve deeper into this moment. Soo-jin sits on her cot, the barack quiet except for the soft breathing of her sleeping roommates. The letter from her mother smells faintly of home, of charcoal and rice. Her mother's words are simple but heavy. We're proud of you, but we miss you. Soo-jin traces the characters, remembering her mother's hands teaching her to write. She thinks of her village, the way the river sparkled under the moon, the way her brother used to tease her about her crooked braids. But she also thinks of her life here, the patients who call her name, the friends who share their dreams, the electric lights that make every day feel like a gift. She writes back, promising to send money for her sister's school, for her father's medicine. The decision to stay feels like a betrayal and a blessing, a choice to honor her family by building a future they can share. This is what resilience looks like, not just enduring, but choosing to grow, to hope, to love across oceans. Soo-jin chose to stay, and so did many others. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was a brave one. They sent money back to Korea, helping their families rebuild homes or buy food. Some dreamed of bringing their parents to join them one day. This decision was about more than a place, it was about resilience and hope. These nurses saw a chance to create something new, not just for themselves but for the people they loved. They carried their Korean roots while embracing a new future, showing us that courage means choosing growth, even when it's scary. Let's explore what staying meant for these women. Soo-jin moves from the camp to a hospital in a nearby city, maybe Yokohama or Honolulu. She rents a small room just big enough for a bed and a table. She sends half her paycheck home, writing long letters about her new life. She describes the lights that never go out, the patients who call her Nurse Sue, the friends who invite her to dinner. She misses Korea every day, the smell of rice fields, the sound of temple bells, but she's proud of what she's building. She's not just a nurse now. She's a bridge between worlds, carrying her heritage while learning a new way of life. This is what courage looks like, not loud or flashy, but steady, rooted in love for others. Let's imagine Soo-jin's new life in detail. Her room is on the second floor of a modest boarding house, with a window overlooking a busy street. She decorates it with small touches of home: the scarf from her mother, a drawing from her sister, a tiny clay pot for her kimchi. She writes letters late at night, under the glow of an electric lamp, describing the hospital's gleaming halls and the patients who thank her with shy smiles. She sends money home, enough to fix her family's roof and buy books for her sister. On her days off, she explores the city, marveling at the neon signs and bustling markets. She misses the quiet of her village, but she's learning to love the hum of this new world. Her courage isn't just in staying, it's in embracing every challenge, from learning to drive to mastering English phrases, all while carrying Korea in her heart. As years passed, the nurses settled into their new lives. Soo-jin, now maybe 30, worked in a big hospital, not just a camp. She learned English, stumbling over words but laughing at herself. She tried pizza for the first time, thought it was too cheesy but ate it anyway. She shared kimchi with her American friends, who coughed at the spice but asked for more. She got an apartment, learned to drive, and felt proud every time she paid her rent. The electric lights that once amazed her were now just part of her day, but they still reminded her of that first spark of wonder. Let's imagine Soo-jin's new routine. She wakes up early, the hum of her electric alarm clock pulling her from dreams of Korea. Her apartment is small but hers, with a photo of her family on the wall and a pot of kimchi fermenting in the corner. She drives to the hospital, still amazed at the steering wheel in her hands. At work, she's a leader now, guiding younger nurses with the same patience she once needed. She teaches them how to calm a scared patient, how to make a bandage feel like care. On weekends, she meets friends at a Korean-American club, where they cook bulgogi and sing old songs. These moments, ordinary but precious, are what make a life. They show us that belonging isn't about losing who you are. It's about weaving your story into a new tapestry. Let's expand on her daily life. Soo-jin's mornings start with a cup of tea, brewed from leaves she bought at a market that reminds her of Korea. She listens to the radio, catching familiar English words like "good morning" and practicing them under her breath. At the hospital, she's known for her calm presence, the way she can soothe a child's fever or reassure a nervous soldier. She mentors a young nurse, Lily, who's just starting out, sharing tips on keeping patients comfortable. On weekends, the Korean-American Club is her haven. They gather in a community hall, the air filled with the sizzle of meat and the chatter of two languages. Soo-jin teaches the group a traditional Korean dance, her laughter echoing as they stumble through the steps. These moments, filled with joy and connection, show us that a new life doesn't erase the old. It builds on it, creating something richer. These nurses didn't just build new lives, they built communities. They went to church, joined Korean-American groups, and celebrated holidays like Chuseok alongside Thanksgiving. Some started families, raising kids who spoke English and Korean, blending two worlds. Their hard work paid off, not just for them but for everyone around them. They showed what it means to belong, to create a home wherever you are. It's a lesson for all of us. Home isn't just a place. It's the people you care about and the life you make together. Let's zoom out to see the bigger picture. These nurses joined Korean-American communities that were just starting to grow. They helped build churches, opened small businesses, and taught their kids the value of hard work. They celebrated Lunar New Year with rice cakes and shared Thanksgiving turkey with neighbors. Their children grew up with stories of Korea, tales of resilience and sacrifice, but also with dreams of their own, shaped by their new home. Some became the first in their families to go to college, inspired by their mother's courage. This is what community means, not just living side by side, but lifting each other up, sharing dreams, and building something lasting. Let's explore this community further. Picture a Korean-American church in the 1960s, its pews filled with families like Soo-jin's. They sing hymns in Korean, the melodies blending with English prayers. After service, they gather for a potluck, tables laden with kimchi, bulgogi, and American dishes like apple pie. Soo-jin's daughter, now a teenager, helps organize a youth group, teaching younger kids Korean folktales. The community opens a small grocery store, stocked with ingredients from home, a place where newcomers can find comfort in familiar flavors. These nurses didn't just join communities, they shaped them, creating spaces where heritage and hope could coexist. Their legacy is in every shared meal, every story passed down, every dream that took root in a new land. The story of these nurses lives on today. Their kids and grandkids grew up in the U.S., becoming teachers, doctors, artists, carrying forward the values of hard work and compassion. You can see their legacy in hospitals where nurses from all backgrounds work side by side. You see it in Korean-American communities, where people celebrate their heritage while building new dreams. And you see it in the way their story inspires us to keep going, to find light in dark times, and to trust in the kindness of others. Let's reflect on that legacy. Walk into any hospital today, and you'll see nurses from every corner of the world, each bringing their own story. Some might be daughters or granddaughters of those Korean nurses, carrying the same steady hands and warm hearts. In cities across the U.S., Korean-American festivals fill the air with music and the smell of grilled meat, a celebration of roots and new beginnings. These nurses didn't just change their own lives, they changed the world around them. They showed that one person's courage can ripple outward, touching generations. Their story is a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, no matter how far from home we are. Let's dive into this modern legacy. Visit a city like Los Angeles or New York, and you'll find vibrant Korean American communities. There are cultural centers where kids learn Korean language and history, festivals where K-pop blares alongside traditional drum performances. Nurses, inspired by the pioneers like Soo-jin, work in hospitals, their scrubs a modern echo of those 1950s uniforms. Some are first generation, others second or third, but they all carry a legacy of care and resilience. At a hospital in Chicago, a nurse named Ji-won, whose grandmother was one of those Korean nurses, shares stories of her ancestors' journey, inspiring her colleagues. This legacy isn't just about individuals. It's about a collective strength, a reminder that courage and compassion can shape a nation. What's the big takeaway? This story is about human values: courage, hope, trust, and community. These nurses left everything behind, found wonder in something as simple as a light bulb, and built lives full of meaning. They remind us that even when life feels dark, we can find a spark to keep us going. They showed us that strangers can become family, and that a new beginning is always possible if you're brave enough to try. Let's make this personal. Think about a time in your life when you felt like a stranger. Maybe a new school, a new city, or even a new job. What gave you the courage to keep going? Was it a kind gesture, a small success, or a moment of wonder that made you feel like you belonged? For me, it's stories like this that light a spark. Stories of people who faced the unknown and found a way to shine. These nurses remind us that we're all capable of that kind of bravery. Their journey wasn't just about electric lights. It was about lighting up the world with their hearts. Let's reflect a bit more. Maybe you've moved to a new place, like I did when I was younger, feeling like an outsider until someone shared a smile or a story that made you feel at home. Or maybe it was a time when you took a risk, like starting a new project or helping someone in need, and found strength you didn't know you had. These nurses faced a world far scarier than most of us can imagine, yet they found light, literally and figuratively. Their story challenges us to look for our own sparks, to find hope in small moments, to build connections with those around us. What's a moment that made you feel brave or hopeful? Hold on to that as we wrap up this story. So, what's a moment in your life that felt like a spark of hope? Maybe it was moving to a new place, meeting a new friend, or discovering something small that changed how you saw the world. Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched you, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs a little inspiration, and hit that subscribe button so we don't miss each other next time. We've got more stories like this coming, so stick around. Thanks for watching, and let's keep shining together.